I've owned this car for 8 years now, and I still really like it. Is this for everyone? Should everyone have this car? No, definitely not. It's, yeah, I'm just gonna say no. If you want something really fast, or something that's gonna scare you or whatever, like, this is not that. I guess what I like about this is it is so engaging at any speed. I'm not gonna get into like, you know, like this driver connection, but it's just like everything's weird. Like everything's just very different. It is rear engine, the way that it delivers power, just feels different than pretty much anything else I've driven. And I've driven like 750 different cars. So these rank highly for me just because it's just an experience you don't really get with something else. In the sense of like the way that it puts power down, the way the gear shift feels, the way that it, you know, what happens when you steer. I'm not saying it's the best. It's just very unique, and you know, holistically it all kind of works together. I always forget how much I like just driving this for like running errands and just doing, you know, whatever. I don't have to be, you know, out hitting the twisties, because we don't really have twisties around here. So something that feels exciting and engaging at low speed and around town and a trip to the store is perfect for me. When I'm away from the car for a while, I'm like, oh, like it's such a pain, like it's so bad over bumps, and I'm always worried about it. It's not going to start, it's going to break, whatever. And then when I go drive it, it is just like easy. You know, in my head, I think of it as this fragile, precious thing. And then when I get out and drive it, it's, you know, I'm not really afraid to take it anywhere, just because the sight lines are so good. It's so easy to drive. Like, I feel like I can, you know, naively feel like I could escape any kind of, you know, hairy situation just through being able to easily place this car on the road. So that is something really nice. I always forget like how usable this car is. The other thing is that, you know, photographing this car has been incredible. I got this car in 2016, and I think I'm a much better photographer than I was then. I'm not gonna credit it to things I learned shooting this car, but it helps having something that, you know, inspiring. I don't want to say a muse, but kind of having like a car muse, like something where, you know, it's always going to look pretty good. Like it is timeless, it is classic. So maybe it flatters you, but maybe the techniques you do, you know, you get a good enough result that you want to stick with it and keep trying to improve. But it's easy to land somewhere you're happy with when the car already looks good. And then obviously, like, what I try to do with photography is just try to like keep pushing or keep exploring or keep trying to do things. I don't want to just I'm not gonna say master something, but I don't want to, you know, figure something out pretty well and then just only do that. I want to keep trying to look for what's next, and then having a car that is always a treat to photograph and fun to look at pictures of for me, that helps. Only bad thing about this part of town is that it like smells like industrial cancer. That's not good. So one nice thing is that this car, like I said, it always looks good to photograph. And also while I don't doubt that this car, like you were probably looked at as kind of a yuppie asshole in the 80s. And I think that's to a lesser extent today. I'm sure still a little bit, but usually if someone sees you driving this car of this era, it's like, oh, like that's like it's nice to see an old car, you know? It's nice to see something that's not a gray crossover from 2018. So people generally are happy to see it as long as you're not driving like an asshole. Yeah, I never really saw myself as a classic car enthusiast. I didn't know anyone that was into old cars really, and I think it's just become more of a thing because new cars kind of leave something to be desired. When I was growing up, it was like I always wanted like the newest car I could afford, like the newest like sports car that was available to me, and often that was like 4 or 5 years old or something like that. Then I got a Porsche Boxster S, and that was like 12 years old when I bought it, and that was because I couldn't afford like a 911, which is why a lot of people buy a Boxster, and they're great cars. And then I bought this car in 2016, and it was already, 36 years old. That's math. I think that's the right math. It was already a pretty old car in 2016, and I just, there's issues with old cars. People are gonna tell you that these are like bulletproof, like tanks, like, oh, they don't make them like these. There's still stupid stuff on these cars, and because this car is just like predates, let's check the exposure. I think they are made pretty well, like they're pretty solid cars, old 911s. But you're still gonna have problems, and you're gonna have problems with any car that's 40 years old. But if you find that new cars leave something to be desired, and I'm not saying that's a factual statement, it's just an opinion of one person. If that is how you feel, then and you want something older, like it depends on how old. There's a reason that old 911s are so popular. They made a lot of old Porsches, so it is probably the safest way to have like a European classic sports car that is relatively easy to keep going. And I'm not gonna say it's easy to keep going, but it is an old sports car that is easier than an old Alfa Romeo, easier than easier than like a Lancia. And if you have like an old Ferrari, you're just probably not gonna put the miles on it. People with old Porsches drive them, and I drive this car, so it has 118,613 miles. I bought it at, I think it was 80 or 81,000 miles, and I've put those on, and I don't think about selling this car ever, so I'm not worried about mileage or resale or any of that. I just, you don't want to like, you kind of don't want to do like 10,000 miles just because that's like more than $10,000 in maintenance probably. That's just sort of like how it is. So if I want to keep miles on, it's not for resale. It's just because like, I just don't want stuff to come due again so soon. You just want to like enjoy the miles. Like I do the Hill Country Rally every year, and that ends up being like a 1,000-mile trip or something like that, and that is always so worth it. But the thought of driving to California again, which I did in 2018, like doing that again is not very appealing, just because it's going to be like a 4,000-mile round trip, and like why? It could be really amazing, and maybe I'll do it again, but I'm not in a rush to do that again. Yeah, I do love taking pictures of this car. White, a boring color by most accounts. I added the stripes. White is not considered a super interesting color, but for photography, it's like so, I don't know, forgiving. I have like a thought of a video I want to do about shooting different car colors, because I've shot like probably every color on something, and there are certain ones that just give you better results. And I'm not going to say white's the best, but white is probably one of the easiest. I think, spoiler alert, I think red is the best, and I don't say that like red is the best color, but I think red is like maybe the easiest to get really spectacular results. 8 years with this 911 SC. Would I do it again? Yeah, this was the right car for me. Definitely not saying it's the best car, but it's one I do love coming back to. You know, it's one of those things where you like, do you look back at your car after you park it, and for whatever reason, this car pulls me back. So yeah, I can't imagine anything else. So maybe I just don't have a lot of imagination. But I have driven many other cars, but this is the one I'm always happy to come back to, for sure. Only encountered like 4 other cars, but they see the camera and they're like, what's going on? I don't know how people do this. This is like, I feel very impaired right now. Have you ever seen the studies where they say that like if you are driving and you really have to urinate, that is equal to like drunk driving, basically? Like, I feel this is the same way. I don't know how people do this. Get this thing off my car. All right. That'll do it.